The Uncle Tim Show on Vintage Radio 1077.
Yes, folks, it is the Uncle Tim Show. I'm live here in the Rhythm City Casino Studios, talking into the shiny platinum microphone. It's about 69 degrees, and it's 7 o'clock. Set your watch. And we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm not going to play the news on the top of the hour. You know, it's all bad news anyway. I got some good news. Got a guest in the studio, and it just kind of happened. Had some company over the weekend, a couple of sisters in town, and my nephew driving through, and I can't get rid of him. He's still here, still parked in my driveway. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I said, come on into the studio here. He's got a lot to talk about. He's on a magical mystery trip across the United States, talking about my nephew, Matt Possley. How interesting. How weird. It's the Uncle Tim Show, and he's talking to his Uncle Tim. Wow, pretty strange. Anyway, open up some microphones here and get started. Matt, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And Uncle Tim, thanks so much for having me here tonight. I'm flattered to be here. This is a wonderful opportunity. And, of course, with Veterans Day coming up in a couple days, what better way to spend the show here than a couple of washed-up old Navy guys?
That's right. We're talking Navy here tonight. It's a Navy family. I'm so glad that you decided to stick around for another night and come in here and check out these luxurious studio. What do you think?
This is great. I love the setup here, and it's awesome that I was able to make the stop on my way out west. I'm on like you mentioned, a cross-country trip. I did a bunch up in the Northeast, and now I'm headed out west. This is a great place to stop in between. We could
tell the listeners where you live, but basically you're living in my driveway right now.
Just out in the driveway. I bought a 1983 Toyota Dolphin. It's an old tin can that I picked up, traded in my motorcycle, and purchased that as soon as I got out of the Navy, and I've been living out of it and traveling around ever since.
Wow, that'd be a really, really, really fun thing to do, and you're headed all the way across the country. You're going to be able to report back on the way back, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how many miles I can put in. I'm just under 10,000 miles on the trip so far. I started in Florida, and now I'm here.
The tin can. Let's see. That would make it 30. What? How old? What?
It's 30, should be about 37 years old.
37 years old, but in human or dog years or whatever, it's really 110, right?
Well, the odometer stopped at about 124,000, so we can pretend like it's still kind of stuck in the 80s there.
All right. Excellent. And like I say, I am really happy that you decided to stick around for another day before we kicked you out. Come into the studio. And before we talk a little bit about where you might stop on the trip or where you've stopped, let's talk about your Navy career. You spent pretty close to 9 years, correct?
Just under 9 years, yes.
How'd you get interested in the Navy?
Well, it was a way to pay for college, first of all. My older brother was the first one of us to go through the ROTC program and saw him get his school paid for. I thought that was pretty cool. One of the things that really stuck with me from my childhood, though, was actually when I interviewed Papa back in, must have been 5th or 6th grade for a school project.
My dad, the Navy man.
Indeed. And I remember interviewing him for a school project and wanted to find out what it was like back in World War II, and he had nothing but pride and great things to say about it, and that really stuck with me for a long time thinking about that, and I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. Wasn't ready to grow up, so I decided to join the Navy instead.
And your brother led the way, Nick?
He did. He went into the ROTC program a couple years before. My twin brother and I both did the same. And the Navy program was especially attractive to me, I feel like, because you have the option of being on a surface ship, like my twin brother was, subsurface, like my older brother, or being in aviation, like I ended up being. So it's cool that you get the ability to choose any of those tracks, and that was good to have those choices.
You know, it sounds a lot better now that I turned the other microphone on instead of the wrong one, right?
Uh-oh, yeah. I feel like it sounds great now.
I shouldn't even have said that, but it sounds a whole lot better right now. So Nick led the way with submarines and spent how many years?
He must have been around 5 years.
Okay.
Got out about 3 or 4 years ago.
And your twin brother, Evan, who's older between the two of you?
I've got him by 1 minute.
You've got him by 1 minute. And who's smarter?
Can never let him forget it. But he is, I got to tip my cap there. He's the smarter of the two, and he'll probably tell you the same.
Wow. Well, I know he'd say the same, but I didn't think you would.
I'll give that one to him.
Anybody that knows Greek wins?
Well, he's definitely got the language thing on me, that's for sure.
And what's Evan up to?
He is still in Greece, living on Crete, and I believe his orders take him out until May of next year. He's been there about 3 years now.
And he doesn't want to leave.
No, he keeps extending and trying to let them stay out there. So who knows when he'll head back? But it looks like those orders are up here in the next 8 or 9 months.
Yeah, I wish we always had plans to get over there, but with the travel the way it is now, I don't know. But
that's the tough thing. In fact, actually, during this time, I was planning on living over there with him. When I got out of the Navy, I've been discharged since August 1st of this year. My plan was to go over there and live with him for a few months before starting a real job. I figure my first real job in the world. But with the travel restrictions and everything looking like making it tough to get over there, and then even to get back, I decided I needed to make other plans and found the RV and decided to do that instead.
Now, your job in the real world, that's going to be co-hosting the Uncle Tim show, right, with the big bucks?
I'm available right now, so throw me an offer. We'll see what we can work out.
You can park right up here in the Triangle. I was going to tell everybody you just flew in and stay off the Triangle, but I'll tell the truth. You're parked in the driveway. But you're 9 years. Did you ever think about sticking it out another 11 or no 18? I think you can retire, can't you?
It would have been 20, and that was what I was gunning for until about 2 years ago. So the first 7 years that I was in, I was thinking I was in it for the long haul. The thing that changed it was when I was pursuing a master's degree, which I started a few years back and just graduated this past spring. And it was something I was really interested in studying and thought I could see myself changing gears and doing something a little bit different.
And that degree would be in?
It was a Master of Science in Predictive Analytics, so I'm trying to get a job as a data scientist right now.
You could probably really help the ratings on the Uncle Tim show if you could get in there and do a little manipulation. So maybe you better stick around after this interview.
I could help the show, or the show could help me if anybody's got a data science job out there and is looking for a former sailor.
All right.
The lines are open.
I think, yeah, his degree speaks for itself. Yeah, lines are open. It'll be ringing off the hook here. I'll put a pillow over the phone. But all right, your Navy career. Run us through your career.
So 9 years, just about, in the Navy. When I left, I did my undergrad at University of Michigan. Once I graduated from there, they sent me down to flight school in Pensacola, Florida. Spent about 1.5 years in Pensacola, and then they shipped me off to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Join the Navy, see Middle America. Isn't that what they always say?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of good sailing there.
So I got to fly the E-6B. I was a naval flight officer, backseat communications specialist. And I was in the back of the E-6B there for about 4 years. And then they actually sent me back to Pensacola to be an instructor there for the last 3.5 years of my tour. And interestingly enough, I'm not sure how many people can say this, but I did a full 9 years in the Navy and was never stationed outside of the Central Time Zone. Pensacola, Florida, it creeps into that Central Time Zone, and that's got to be a pretty rare fact right there.
That is a piece of trivia on Matt Possley right there. Talk about your time out there in the Midwest it was the E6B.
E6B Mercury. It's a Boeing 707. That plane deploys from Oklahoma City. There's 2 different squadrons, and they man the east and the west coast. The primary mission is to get airborne over the coast and be able to transmit messages to submarines in the case of nuclear war. So we send those messages out at the behest of the President, Secretary of Defense. And to have the ability to do that, we have to trail really long wires out the back of the plane and send a lot of energy out. So a submarine that's submerged is difficult to communicate with unless you're able to speak on very, very low frequencies. And to have those low frequencies, you have to have super long antennas. So we have one that's 2 miles long and another one that's 5 miles long that have to trail out the back end.
That is incredible. A 5-mile antenna.
It's pretty wild. And then you have to push 200 kilowatts of power out that thing, and that's been told is enough to power a city block. So it's pretty impressive stuff.
Now that you released that classified information, you have to kill me, right?
Well, I think you can. I'm trying to stick to the Wikipedia stuff on there so I don't disclose anything I'm not supposed to. But
all right, we probably won't talk about sub depths, but that's pretty impressive that you can transmit to a. I was just going to ask about if they had to surface, but no.
They don't need to. Not for when we speak on very low frequency to them there. And it's a really cool job because it's got a lot of importance, but it was also nice that we got to practice what we were never hoping to be able to do. And we haven't had any nukes flying in the last few years, so I guess we were doing our job making sure that didn't happen.
What's the longest flight you ever took on one of those?
I had a handful over 14 hours. I don't think I ever went over 15, but our plane was able to refuel in the air. So if we needed to stay longer than 12, I think 12 was if we had a full tank. If we had to stay up in the air longer than that, we could take fuel from a tanker and extend that.
Get a couple games of chess in or something on one of those long ones, right?
Chess, you get Risk going, Monopoly, a lot of card games. It gets heated, but yeah, anything to keep us busy up there.
And would you always? Did you say you would always go West Coast? Or
There's
would
two
you,
different squadrons. One of them goes West Coast, one goes East Coast. So I was in the East Coast squadron.
You were in the East Coast, so pretty interesting. So you spent 4 years doing that. Got a lot of flight time in there. You got a handle on how much flight time you got?
It was actually very disappointing. I didn't get over 2,000 hours, just shy. I was just a bit over 1,900 hours. And my last few years there in Pensacola, I was able to fly in the T6, which is a little two-seater ejection seat prop plane, and do some training flights. So I was trying to use those hours to get over 2,000. But with COVID in the past year, not being able to get up there, they really limited a lot of training flights to essential only. And they didn't deem my pursuit for 2,000 as essential, it turns out.
Now, when you went back to Pensacola, was that your dream? You wanted to go there, or they cut you orders to say you are going there?
They cut me orders, but it was at my request. That was my first choice. In the aviation community, the golden path, so to speak, if you want to stick around and make it to retirement, is to stay in your community training your immediate replacements. So I was able to go down to Pensacola and train all of the naval flight officers for 3.5 years that were all being sent up to Oklahoma City. So that was a cool way to have an impact on the community and keep myself relevant for advancement. And then, when it came time to make a decision to stay in or get out, I had a couple different options there, which was nice.
So before you started training them, did you have to go through school?
I did. There was very minimal training. I really just had to go through the program that I was going to teach, and then I pretty much rewrote it in my first year there. It was a very new program. When I was in flight school, they didn't have this advanced squadron. It's the advanced training for these E6 NFOs. And so I didn't go through it. It was brand new after I had left, so I had to get schooled up on that kind of stuff, and then there were a lot of changes that I wanted to make to it, so I kind of made it my own.
My young nephew bossing people around down there, telling them how to do it and how it's done.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Now, you were down at Pensacola when I just thought about that, when that shooting took place.
Last December, yes.
And I forget what went down on that one.
That was
single shooter?
It was a single shooter. I believe there was a car outside waiting for him. It was at the Aviation Pre-Flight Indoctrination Building. So that's over where brand new flight school students are doing some classroom training and things. And it was very fortunate that it did happen so early in the morning that there was really no one there but a couple watchstanders. And a couple hours later, there could have been an auditorium full of students waiting to start flight school training.
And so what, couple people died or not?
There were, I believe, 3.
3 that died in that. So, man,
yes.
Pretty unreal. That just happened to pop into my head that while you were down there. You went through a hurricane or two, didn't you?
Actually, we were really lucky while I was there. I was there just under 4 years, and it seemed like every hurricane that was coming through would either veer to the east or veer to the west at the last moment. And it's funny that, I left there in August, and it was but a month later, a hurricane did come straight through. And it was after I left, so maybe it was the luck ran out after I skipped town there.
The luck ran out. So how hard was it to leave after 9 years, or were you just ready to cash it in?
I think I was ready. Maybe some of it hasn't hit me yet, some of the nostalgia, but it's only been a couple months yet. But I felt like I got a lot out of my career. I enjoyed every minute of it, and very appreciative for it, and really not upset at all that it had to end. But it was a great time. That's
how I feel about my 4 years. You got a lot of friends out there, a lot of community out there that you can always touch base with, and the longer you're out, the better it was. That's usually the way it works. I mean,
it only gets rosier as you look back.
Oh, my 4 years were fantastic since they were early 70s. At the time, it isn't. But, what a great career. And like you say, you mentioned COVID. And I've done a couple of stories about how COVID has hit these carriers and how some of these ships have been staying out. And I think that would be a really, really rough thing once you get it in there. How has it affected the aviation community?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the ship life because I was in the Navy 9 years, never saw a ship. But as far as aviation went, in my training squadron this last year, it didn't change a ton on the day-to-day because we still had to produce students. We couldn't stop because it would have been a gap that we would have never been able to maintain. So we kept producing students, and X's didn't slow down, but we stayed away from the office as much as we could, and they made sure everybody was distanced and wearing masks and everything. And our squadron was actually specifically, we were 100% simulator based. So we were able to stay distant in the simulator building and just make it work.
Well, yeah, ship, like I say, I can't imagine that. I'd like to talk to somebody about some of the things that went down. I think it was the Teddy Roosevelt, I can't remember, that really got hit hard, where they let the CO go, or they, stepped down and tried to get it back in there. Was it the Teddy Roosevelt?
That was a big story. It was pretty wild times. And then there was
a couple of them.
And I might be getting the name wrong, but then the Truman was the one that went out this past. They might have left in January. They were out for something like 265 days straight without hitting a port. And I did have a couple friends on that ship. Maybe I can get them onto the show here for you. But they're over there in Norfolk, Virginia. They just got off deployment recently, and they didn't have too many complaints about it, which was nice to hear. But I'm sure they would have probably appreciated a port call or two.
I saw a couple of those numbers, and I said, hey, I was out there longer than that, but I wasn't factored in. We were going into port. Not just sitting out there on Steel Beach or whatever. That's a long haul. So I know your parents, my brother and sister-in-law, probably tuned in here. You really are on the hot seat.
I guess so. They're probably listening to every word here very closely.
I think they're on their way somewhere. And my brother said, could you record it? And I said, only if I remember to hit the button. I did remember to hit the button. And now that I've got the right microphone on, things are going really good. So your time in the Navy was good. Your flight time, anything super unusual? I guess, just all the flight time would be great. Anything super unusual that you want to throw out there?
There was only one really crazy flight that I had the, I don't know if I want to call it pleasure to be on, but I was on board one time where there was a message that went out that said that there was going to be basically a nuclear attack on the United States. It was a test message, and we didn't realize it at the time. But there was about 5 minutes there that we thought World War III had just started, and we were airborne for it. It was pretty wild, but fortunately, we made a couple phone calls and found out that was a false alarm. So
you tipped over the risk of Monopoly boards on that one, right?
Everything went flying.
Well, let's talk about the state of the military. You can probably maybe speak for the Navy. What do you think of the state, the situation now with the Navy? The guys pretty happy out there. Are they getting enough recruits in? You think we should feel pretty good about where the Navy's at?
I can only speak from my limited scope in naval aviation, but people are still getting the best and brightest down there for flight training, and everybody's training really hard and getting really excited about some new aircraft coming down the line. The P-8 is in the middle of changing over for the old P-3 Orion, and there's some new innovations and new aircraft coming online, and there's some exciting things going on. I think it's going great for naval aviation these days. All
right. So you finished up with just under 9 years, right?
That's correct.
And Evan is at what?
He got in 1 year after me, so he's got to be somewhere around 8 right now.
And he's going to stretch that Crete, which is heaven on earth, speaking of Belinda Carlisle.
As long as they'll let him stay out there, I believe he will. So.
Well, I'm looking at some of his stuff online, and I'm emailing him once in a while, and I'm saying that is pretty much the dream job.
He has a bunch of camera equipment out there. He goes on hikes with his dog and takes unbelievable GoPro footage and drone footage and all the rest. I'll give a quick plug. His Instagram handle, Evan Possley, at Evan Possley, EVAN Possley, and he puts some incredible stuff out there. He's a great follow. He should get into some professional photography. I think it's incredible. After
the last little movie that I saw that he did, that's exactly what I said to him. I said you could go professional. I think so. It's Evan and his dog Argos hanging out over there in Crete.
Yep.
And
hanging out a little more closely right now because they're on a full lockdown actually on Crete at the moment. They started that back on Saturday.
Due to COVID?
Yes.
A COVID lockdown.
They had a couple more cases crop up, and they're pretty isolated there on the island, so I think they're pretty worried about that spreading, and they go full lockdown. This is the second time they've done it.
It would really be fun to go and visit him there and be with somebody who knows Greek on a Greek island.
It was perfect. I did make it out there one time. It was just over 2 years ago, and spent about 3 weeks on the island there with him, and there could be no better tour guide because he's fluent in the language. he knew everywhere to go, all the cool beaches, all the cool spots, and it's you got a translator there that's your twin brother. How could you have a better trip? It was wonderful.
Well, yeah, my sister and niece went over there and had the time of their life, so I know that is that was on our radar till all this happened. So
And it's a bummer. I could be there right now, but you know what? It's not too bad being on the Uncle Tim show instead.
oh man, there's a plug, folks. Yeah, my new stunt double here on the Uncle Tim show. Well, any advice for somebody thinking about, if people ask me about the military, I'm a Navy guy. I say go Navy. Depends on who you talk to, but any advice on anybody out there thinking about entering the Navy?
Well, now that I'm out, I can definitely say that this isn't just the company line, but I do recommend people join the Navy because of the choices that you can make and the places that you can go. Like I said, I spent my whole time stationed in the Central Time Zone, but that's by far and away a unique case. You can go anywhere, do some incredible things, and the fact that you can, if you're entering in as an officer, which is the way that I know about it, is you can go subsurface, surface, or aviation. The opportunities are endless, and it's just there's so many cool things to do. And I mentioned it before, but now I feel like at changing careers, I'm getting my first real job because I've never really felt like I worked for a living because I was just out there having fun.
He didn't really get out, folks. He's really a Navy recruiter, and we're
just changed into a reservist recruiter role.
That's right. We're just testing him out here tonight. All right, you're out of the Navy, and you are on the Magical Mystery Tour in your cab over camper.
The Toyota Dolphin.
Yep. Hey. You just did a small repair there. Get a plug for Allen's Automotive. He advertises here. Went up there and Sean bailed you out here today.
Oh, they were fantastic. Sean hooked me up. It was I was having some electrical issues, and he was able to help me get the lead on the batteries all crimped up, and now we're banging again. It's there's some solar panels on top that feed my batteries and keep my fridge and coffee pot going. So those are pretty essential items that I was going to need here. And now that I'm fixed up, I can get charged up and be good to go. Now,
this is going to be an adventure. I told Mrs. Uncle Tim not to cook too well, or you'll have an electrical issue every day where you have to stay over for another day.
We'll see if it even starts in the morning. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of here.
It depends on what we're having for supper, right? All right, where'd you start this journey? Well, you drove from Pensacola.
Started in Pensacola, and I was working my way up the East Coast to start. Went through Alabama, South Carolina, and then up to visit some Navy friends up in Norfolk, Virginia. Then I took a little bit of a detour to visit my folks in Ohio. It was my birthday week back in the middle of September, so I felt like spending it with family instead of alone out there on the trails. So I stopped through there and then ended up doing a bunch up in the Northeast. I think my favorite parts of the trip so far was upstate New York and into Vermont and Maine. And had a spot of trouble in Vermont. I broke down the clutch gave out. I was stuck there for 5 days, but it wasn't the worst 5 days. I had a good time.
Was it a long walk, or were you close to somewhere?
It was a long tow ride to get there, and I had to get towed twice because they took me to the wrong spot, and it was Friday night, and nothing was open till Monday. So it was tough going, but every time something comes up, and it tends to come up when you have a 1983 that doesn't run so smooth all the time, and I have issues, but I just have to smile my way through it and figure, hey, I'm having a good time out here anyway.
I hope you're keeping some kind of a journal.
I started a journal at the beginning. I'll admit I'm very behind at the moment. I keep saying, I got to update it every time I change spots, but it just seems like I'm moving along so quickly now that I've got to get maybe once I get out west and some solitude in the mountains, maybe that's the time I'll take to catch up.
That's why you're not leaving. You got to update your journal tomorrow, right?
That's it. I'll just be stuck. Once the pen starts flowing, maybe I just won't be able to move on.
So you did, what was the name of that city that had all those world's largest?
Oh, Casey, Illinois. That's another big highlight on the trip. It was amazing. I had no idea it was there. I had actually just pulled off for gas the exit before, and I see all these billboards for the world's largest, and there must have been 9 or 10 of them there. They have the world's largest golf tee, wind chime, rocking chair. It was unbelievable.
Pitchfork.
And
the one that got me is, I think, pencil.
The pencil. They had a number 2 pencil, must have been 30 feet long. It was wild.
Anything to put Casey on the map. Big place or not? Town?
No, tiny place. And I couldn't imagine there'd be many reasons to come through except for to see the awesome exhibits there. And they were sprinkled all throughout the town. They weren't all in one spot. So it made you really go through and see the place. and good advertising for them. It was a really cool stop.
We've got to think of something for Erie, but we don't want to step on Casey's toes. We don't want to go for a
Well, maybe
40-foot pencil.
just a bigger rocking chair. I don't know. That might be tough to build. So,
Okay, on your radar on this magical trip, where are you headed?
from here, I'm making my way through Iowa and seeing a bunch of family members on my mom's side. On the other end of that, I've got to figure out if I'm willing and able to go up into Montana and spend some time in the cold up there. The Dolphin doesn't have a whole lot of heat source, so if I'm willing to brave it, I'll go up there and see some cool things. The Grand Tetons are on my radar at some point, and eventually make it out to to California and do the Highway 1 drive down the coast.
No, that'd be a great drive. I was talking with Matt when he was talking about going over the mountains and up to Montana, and I mentioned he wasn't familiar with it, but I told him to Google Donner Pass, and we hope it doesn't turn into cannibalism somewhere. But I have a faith in your mechanical skills.
The Donner Pass, I do definitely need to make it to Donner Pass. It's just making it past there might be the issue, but that's a pretty incredible story that hopefully there'll be some history there that I can learn something from.
Well, hopefully, everything holds together mechanically, but you got an awful lot of friends along the way. Now, when you're in California, you got any Navy buddies out that way?
I do. There's Navy buddies everywhere. In fact, it was just when I was leaving Pensacola, somebody was saying, well, you've been in the Navy 9 years. You got to know people everywhere. And it's like, well, yeah, I've got Navy friends and I've got family all over this country. I've been on the road, I think 2.5 months now. And I really only actually end up staying in the camper out, in random places about half the time. And then the other half, I'm spending time staying at people's places or in their driveways. And it really works out nicely because the shower in there isn't exactly sustainable for months at a time. So it's nice to be able to duck in and have somebody give me some facilities to use every once in a while.
Mrs. Uncle Tim is goes to the board meetings and she takes the notes. So she's got a lot of pull. So you can keep that camper parked out in front. They aren't going to tow you. They aren't going to tow you away. But
Perfect.
Okay, you're driving Highway 1 there in California. Then you're headed all the way back.
I'll head across the southern states there, do hopefully some hiking in Arizona, New Mexico, and eventually end up back in Pensacola where I started. That's where all my stuff is. I moved everything in my apartment into storage. My car is still there, and I'll bundle everything up and end up moving to wherever I get a job. I'm looking at a couple things in Chicago, but if that doesn't work out, there's a lot of other options out there, and wherever
probably some warmer options out there.
There could be, but you know what? I got a little bit sick of being in that warm climate down there. I think being from up north, my blood's a little bit thick. It never really did thin out being down there. I thought I'd get used to it. Never did.
Back to the Dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed that you don't really need a power hookup. You got those batteries. You got that solar. That was a cool add-on.
Couple solar panels on there is really all I need because I can run off the propane with my my range burner in there and do all the cooking I need to do, and the power inverter off the batteries charges up the fridge and everything else I need. So it all works out.
I think we better get a GPS tracker so we can do nightly updates and onto whether you're at Donner Pass, where you're holed up, or what's going on if you're stuck. You said you had to hole up once already because of an ice storm.
Yes, I was in Oklahoma City, actually, where I was stationed for a few years, visiting some old friends that were still there. And while I was down there was a particularly nasty ice storm. They get one just about every winter, but this one came a little earlier and was a little bit more severe than in years past. And it ripped trees apart and turned the whole town into a popsicle for a couple days. And the Dolphin made it out alive, only sprung a couple small leaks. It wasn't too devastating there, but I made it out of there, and it was tough to be there for just those 4 days I was there. It was all ice for 3 of them, but it made it a little bit easier to leave there. And then the weather's been fantastic ever since up in Chicago and then through here in Western Illinois.
I was impressed. You parked in our driveway, and that 84-year-old vehicle you're driving didn't even drop any oil in the driveway.
It didn't, but there was a small leak, and I had to promise it wasn't sewage.
Yeah,
there is a little bit of a potable water leak there that I got to address. But if there wasn't something leaking or an issue with something, then it wouldn't be the Dolphin. It's just something I got to live with constantly.
I can't wait for your next visit in the studio on the return trip as to some of your adventures. Now, it's a radio station. I got to ask you, you a big music guy?
So you'd think, I've been spending a lot of time by myself on the road, these 10,000 miles I've been driving, but really not as much of a music guy. I'll throw together an 80s playlist, put some Huey Lewis on there and some Billy Joel and let Spotify kind of fill that out for me every once in a while, but really more of a podcast guy these days.
I got to get into podcasts.
Throw the Uncle Tim podcast out there and you got a subscriber right here.
As soon as Zaggy here at the studio interviews me for his podcast, I'll tune you into that one because I know you're on the edge of your seat waiting to hear the Uncle Tim podcast.
Only one suggestion on the name, though, and maybe even for the Uncle Tim show, is to me, it's going to be the Uncle Candy Bar show.
I used to be Uncle Candy Bar. I wished I had one right now.
I think there was probably, 2 or 3 times in a row that you came by with candy bars for us, and it was Uncle Candy Bar after that.
Yeah, well, there might be a change here. You never know. So, what else? You got anything else you want to throw out there? Any shout outs, any Navy stories, anything else? Because if you don't, I'm going to ask you about one incident.
Well, nothing really comes to mind. So let's hear what you wanted to ask about here.
Way back in the day, I did so many, I'll just say crazy things. And there was a lot of leeway when I was growing up, but that was a long time ago. For all the crazy stuff I did. But I remember there was some kind of fireworks incident in your background. This was high school?
It was. This was back, I believe, sophomore year of high school, and we were reminiscing about this the other night when you were lighting off some firecrackers back in the backyard. And there was an incident. I lit off a firework inside of a buddy of mine's car, and it ended up burning the car to the ground.
Wow.
It was a rough time.
Just like planes, trains, and automobiles. There was not a roof or something involved, or not?
The window was open, and that's why the firecracker went in, and we sped off after it happened, turned around after 20 minutes with an uneasy feeling, and the flames were about 20 feet in the air.
What kind of car was it?
It was an old Buick. I figure it was maybe like an 85 Buick Century, and the velvet seats in the back must have just been the perfect kindling for that thing. It probably went up in 2 seconds.
And the Navy still took you.
They did. I suppose they didn't find out about that one. I had to do a little bit of community service to make up for it, and I feel like that maybe evened out my record a little bit there.
They had too much money invested in you by the time they found out.
I suppose so.
There was no going back. Well, gosh, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you could come in and talk.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Really flattered to be here. I'm glad you asked me to come on the show.
Well, when you track down one of your buddies, one of your surface ship buddies or something, and maybe we can do call in, always fun.
Absolutely.
Always fun. So great having you in the studio here. We're right through the bottom of the hour. Got birthdays coming up. Usually at 7:35. They're going to be a few minutes late. Going to throw a song on here while we pick up the pieces, and I usher Matt out the door. But he can stay around all long as he wants because I definitely could use an engineer in the studio. So, all right. Thanks again for coming in, Matt.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.